the sickness of this town. I'm the ants inside your walls, the quiet knocking on your door. It's not your story to write. Scratch out your words in the night. When the writer is in doubt, my turn to come out.
Call the secrets from your crystal heart. Shape my story, tear every page apart. Inside us when you left your heart. We burn away the shadows, they strike us hard. Follow you to the dark. Follow you to the dark, dark, dark. Follow you to the dark. Follow you.
Peggy 18.
Night Springs, a special place, a shifting space, existing in a countless number of parallel realities. Different every time we set upon the road that leads us there, and yet always familiar to us. In Night Springs.
I'm in danger. Please, my number one fan. You're the only one who can save me.
And I will come back for you, my love.
And cut. Sean, I'm really happy.
This is gonna get strange.
I was the only one who could save the writer and the very soul of literature.
Something was different.
Try the coffee.
I have a shotgun.
Well, I gotta... Wait, that's a real shotgun?
Who can ever truly know how deep the rabbit hole goes in Night Springs?
Peggy 18.
I drifted far, I was lost at sea. The shore was gone, it was nowhere to be seen. A diver sinking under waves where the sun's never been. To ocean green where shadows creep. And Bowie said I should wait indeed. An artist dying for his art to make you finally see. Is that a lighthouse with a dying light? Or a reflection of my glowing eyes? Am I more than just a dream?
Peggy 18.
Show me the tap!
FBI, drop the knife.
Hi everyone, good time zone. Hi chat, hi Twitch, hi YouTube. Welcome to the final, for now, Alan Wake 2 dev stream. I'm Vida, I am the senior community manager, and I will be your host. And today we are talking about characters, which means a lot of things. And that's why I'm here with a lot of different people from different departments, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hey,
Who wants to start?
I
Yep.
could start, yeah. I'm John Crossland. I'm the lead character artist on Alan Wake 2.
All right. Hi, I'm Ilkka Kuusela. I was the lead gameplay animator on Alan Wake 2.
Hello, everybody. I am Kyle, the game director of Alan Wake 2.
Fantastic. Before we get started chatting to you lot, I will get through some admin. So everyone, please be aware that this is a spoiler stream. There will be spoilers. If you haven't finished the game and you want to keep entirely spoiler free, might be best to leave right now. Secondly, there will be a Q&A session towards the middle of the stream. So if you're thinking of questions while we're chatting, write them down somewhere else and I will call out when it's time for Q&A, when it's time to take your questions. And I've forgotten once again to introduce the most important person in this stream who makes the entire thing run and makes this whole thing happen, who is our community manager, Julius.
Hi, Chad.
There will be no spoilers for the actually, yeah, there will be spoilers for the expansions if there's something that we'll chat about concerning Night Springs. Yeah,
probably.
We'll find out. So, and yeah, I think that was it. That was everything when it comes to admin. So we've gotten over what your titles are. Can we talk about what you did on Alan Wake 2? Like, what is something that you are the proudest of that folks might not be aware is your handiwork or your department's handiwork in the game?
Who's starting on this?
I don't know. I'm looking at Ilkka just because he's in the middle.
All right, I can go. There's a lot of stuff. It was a lot of different people doing the thing, but I think the one thing I'm happy about that we achieved in was having playable characters who show their personality and show their emotion, like in moment-to-moment gameplay.
Okay.
I think that's like a cool thing to do in a video game.
Okay, so how was that? Like, how is that shown? Because you're a gameplay animator, right? So how is that shown in animation with Saga and with Alan?
It's for example, like when they go into different kinds of situations, they change their behavior a bit. Like when they look relaxed when they are safe, and as it gets more intense, you can see it in their body language and behavior and
that's really
that
cool.
kind of stuff. Yes.
Was that difficult to implement? Was that something that was the goal from the start?
Yes, very much. It was one of our animation pillars, kind of have these vulnerable characters who get to show that they're not just action figures, but they're actual like human beings.
Okay.
And I think we did that all right.
Physicality was a big part of the like direction we wanted to give for the characters. So, like, and you know, in Alan Wake 2 compared to Control and Quantum Break and even the first Alan Wake, we're much closer to the characters. So the player sees more of the nuances in how they behave. So kind of Ilkka's team did a really good job in kind of bringing that personality. And both Saga and Alan, you know, they, even though they, in our kind of like gameplay terms, they kind of move at the same speed, they feel very kind of different to players just because of the animation style and how they use their body in the locomotion sets that the team created. So
yeah, that was pretty cool actually with like the gun poses. So like they feel different. So you have like Saga, who's obviously she's trained to know how to use a gun, and Alan, who's like not so trained as much as her. So it's like kind of cool, that nuance.
Yeah, I think that's important for us because, you know, we knew that we were going to do 2 playable characters, and we knew that we didn't want to kind of like completely differentiate their gameplay so much, in that when you didn't have to relearn how to play as them when you're kind of switching characters, but we did want them to feel different. And obviously, there's the visual side in terms of not just what they're wearing and kind of and their character design, but then also the locomotion plays a big part of that. So,
what were the other? You said animation pillars. What were the other animation pillars?
We had physicality, like Carl said. We had believability. I think these are maybe more like quality pillars.
Okay.
And then we have the vulnerable characters, and the final one was player-character connection.
Okay.
Which means that we don't want it to feel like you watching a character on screen that you remote control. No, we want you to feel like you are the character, and even though it's third person, we want it to have a very tight connection. Like, it can be simple things. It can be that, you know, wherever the player is looking with the camera, that's also where the character is looking. So you can kind of feel like you're doing the same thing. Yeah. But it can also be kind of emotional, like when we want the player to feel scared, we want it to also look like the character is scared and kind of like enhance the thing through.
And in a horror game, it's kind of difficult finding that balance between, we don't want to necessarily project what the player is feeling onto, like what the character is feeling onto the player. So like I don't think it's good when you're playing through a sequence and the character is acting very scared, but as a player, I'm not scared. Okay. So we had to kind of find a nice balance of like trying to ensure that those 2 different emotional states from both the character and the player were aligned throughout the course of development. And that just took a lot of us looking through how, when we did like usability tests and had other people play the game, like how they were reacting. And, you know, if there were spikes in kind of like emotional responses on players, then we would try and project that onto the character, so that trying to keep the player and the character aligned as much as possible in terms of how they feel.
I would love to watch some videos. I think, Ilkka, you gave Julius some videos to check out if there's something that we can look at and talk about what we're seeing and sort of explain what we're seeing and how that was, like, still talking about gameplay animation and stuff. Oh.
Yeah. Maybe we can start from the character exploration video, which has both Sam and Ilkka.
Sure.
It's the first one.
First one.
Is the first
Yeah.
one Alan Wake and Alex Casey? That one?
That one,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like showing the process we had for like finding out who are these characters,
Right.
and like what is their body language and all that. So we did, for example, this kind of sequence which has Alan and Casey in it, and they're kind of going through a variety of situations in here, and kind of we wanted to see how do these different characters move in different scenarios. So basically, we are progressively ramping up like how dangerous the situation is, and you can already see how Casey is looking very confident, whereas like Alan is already starting to look worried.
Yeah, and that's a really sort of fascinating part of, like you said, character as well, because it's not about just like what you're wearing and what you're saying. It's also about how you're moving, and I feel like that comes across really well here. So this is in our mocap studio?
Yeah, it's there. We captured this. I don't think we used this mocap for anything directly in the game. It was more like just figuring it out. And this was awesome shoot also from the point of view that I was there. We had our cinematics lead Mircha there. We had our director Ansis there acting as one of the enemies together with me.
Great acting for
and we had Sam, who is the writer, and then like it was also like creative people aligning about how do we want to see these guys move.
Is this kind of exploration something that we often do, or that is often done in game development? Like, we're just doing this to get a feel for the characters and get a feel for the animation, and it's not necessarily something that's going to end up in the final product.
Yeah, it is something I do, like at least for the important characters.
Yeah.
And this normally comes, like there's already been a kind of workshop or kind of discussion with Ilkka about, Alan as a character, what's his state of mind, where we are in the story, and then we kind of take that and then set up these scenarios kind of based on how he as a character is and how, because that reflects how they would behave. So, I think and we did this for basically pretty much all of our characters. So I think that comes across in their performance as well. So
yeah. Also, one practical thing we sometimes do is that we kind of have a practice day.
Okay.
It's also like partially just to get the actors like understand what we are doing and figure it out, but then also we shoot video in that session, and then we can there's a little bit of time between that and the real shoot, so we can kind of show the video, for example, to Kyle and tell like does this look all right to you?
Yeah.
So just kind of get that first pass of feedback out of the way before committing to some.
Yeah, it's a lot faster to do that through video than it is when we got it in the engine and are editing stuff there. So
exactly. If we have time, there's another video.
Oh, we have so much time, don't worry.
Then maybe we can, for example, look at the character exploration Alan Wake. So this is kind of product of that shoot and some others. And this is something I think our cinematics lead, Mircha, put together these kind of character reels that show in a condensed way who is this character.
Yeah. And that was useful for the team, right, as well? That was done for internal use for the team, so they know.
I think it was mostly just to align the internal team.
Yeah.
And I'm also kind of happy to see this because what I see on this video, it's like a lot of that same body language and movement is in the game as you play as Alan.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
also nice to see because it was a long project that kind of carried over all the way through.
Absolutely. How difficult was that, making sure that you are dedicated to the vision from, start of development to shipping? Because it's such a big project, such a complex project.
It in a way it needs work, like just to keep reminding people and keep reminding yourself who these characters are. With Ilkka Villi, it was kind of very easy. Like he was somehow very well staying in character, and he's a really easy person to work with.
Yeah. So shout out to Ilkka, who said he would be in chat.
Yeah. And of course, he's been Alan Wake for
like 18 years, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And he's a great mocap actor, as far as I've heard from experts. Yeah.
This video has audio in it. So
okay.
Do you want to hear the audio?
Do we want to hear the audio and mute the mics? Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, so I think that will be cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Kind of new to me as well. Compared to Alan Wake 1, I think now he's seen so much. He's not shaken. That maybe there's like a little bit more of that sort of hero quality.
We are more consciously with the sequel making a horror game. You know, a hero in a horror story is still a bit more a victim than a hero in an action game. But that danger, being on that edge of being very determined, almost to the point of obsession, and with that kind of you can see courage, that you know, I'm gonna do this, and I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, being kind of dangerously close of being tipped over and not being able to recover, being just destroyed.
Yeah.
We are putting Alan Wake through a grinder. Everything in the dark place you could as well see as not being supernatural, but actually, you know, his inner struggle.
Wake isn't happy.
Clearly there are regrets and disappointments, like in his head. Wanting to succeed and then being disappointed by that success. The marriage with Alice, not being able to kind of like handle that as well, because the focus is maybe too much elsewhere, and then disappointments about that as well. Yeah. So when lost in thought, they are not necessarily the happiest thoughts.
No.
He can pull out that kind of a public face.
Yeah.
And he's genuine enough that you can kind of be fooled that he is genuine, because there is joking and reacting to things. But then again, from that slight thing that he's not fully genuine, I feel that people can sense that thing. And through that, unintentionally, people can somehow sense that there is something in him that I don't like. He can be a bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's right, because he does act that, obviously then he goes way overboard with the aggression at times and things like that. But even when not, because, you know, there is a fan and he isn't comfortable, then it can come across as, well, you know, he doesn't appreciate the fan and he's, you know, too proud for the fans. It's interesting when you say that he would be introvert on some level, because obviously he has a very troubled relationship with being a celebrity. He kind of craves for that, but then he can't deal with it. He doesn't feel comfortable being the center of attention, even though he kind of, on some level, wants to be the center of attention. And there is already a clear conflict there, and then he lashes out. I like the aggression. I like that it goes, you know, that being scared leads to being angry. I think it's nice that we have some contrast between Saga and Wake, because that will make things feel more varied and dynamic. But at the same time, this is an Alan Wake game, and he is still kind of a main character from that perspective. So having range with him as well is a good thing. Like, even through our journey through the dark place, it changes along the way. There are, you know, early on and towards the end, he will be more anxious, but there are stretches where he is more confident and having a very clear goal and going towards it kind of in a determined manner.
He is determined, and he needs to be.
He's been in that nightmare place for 12 years, and still he just keeps on banging his head and trying and trying and trying and not giving up.
Yeah. And that I think affects his movements.
Yeah.
Sort of that he has that going forward sort of attitude and determination.
Yeah. Turn things better, basically.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go.
Very
Are
cool.
we unmuted? That was very cool. No, we're good. Okay.
Okay.
So that was, I think it was Sam, Ilkka, Anssi, and I think that was it. Discussing the character in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, that kind of gets us in the right state of mind for then the stuff that Ilkka was doing later, where we're kind of actually shooting like the full motion capture for all of the different sets that he does inside the game. So and I think that you can quite clearly see the difference in how he moves and how he behaves from Alan Wake 1 to 2, for example. So I think that it's very important for, as a narrative-driven game, that we kind of get into the mind of the character in all aspects of making the game. So,
did you want to have a look at the Casey video as well, Ilkka?
Maybe we can do fine without it. It's in our video
fine.
about
That's
Casey.
fine. Yeah. Okay. I want to move over to John because you've been quiet. I want to hear about.
That's a good thing.
Too much British in this stream.
No. Try and hold the back.
I was going to ask about your part on the project, and because I asked Ilkka, like, what is something that folks might not know that makes him proud? So same question for you. What are you proudest of on this?
I think there's lots of like different things like throughout the project, but I think the thing that probably I enjoyed the most or like really proud of is like working on the like Saga outfit and like working like with Sam and designing it and like all the different people that contributed and also like working on Wake, like designing his suit and like just because it's kind of like a real privilege to like work on these things. It's one of the things I spoke about at GDC. It was like this is such a huge like iconic character in terms of a game. Yeah. It's like got such history. And I remember kind of like going through like the archives, like the Remedy archives, and I kind of know from like previous productions, like Mikko, who worked on the like original Alan Wake, and I remember just like looking through his folders and just trying to get a sense of like what you're doing, like what you're working on. And so just being able to like do that, and then working with Janne and like Kyle and Sam, like Janne, the art director, like just on the design and like because there's so much information you get, like it's quite hard to kind of get your mind inside like the vision of like what's in Sam's head, and like try and kind of compose that down into an image. And I think that was like really rewarding to do, like and then kind of get it approved and then see it in game, and then at the back end of it seeing like the cosplays, because that was the one thing in my mind that I wanted to do was like give something back to the fans as like this is a piece that you can take with you. So like working on the knit and like working with the different partners internally and externally, and just like the whole process was like at one like I never felt like stressed by it at all. I just felt like, oh, this is just a really cool thing, and just try to like in that moment like hold on that what you're working on and what you're doing, and like try and just enjoy it basically. So that was like real fun thing.
One of the things that I find, I don't know if other studios do this, maybe they do, but one of the things that I think that like you like to do a lot, John, is like we actually kind of try and build those outfits physically.
That was gonna be exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that gives it a sense of believability in the sense that these are things that you could actually go and get. So they're kind of like the outfits aren't the kind of like make believe type things. But then from that, it means that we kind of are working with people even outside of Remedy to kind of develop those different elements of the costume.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and like I always try to like take like a really humble approach with it of like try and get experts in who understand that part of the craft that you're like not aware of. Like I can do a knit one kind of thing, knit one, purl one, but I don't think I'm like that good at knitting a sweater. So like understanding how that works and then talking with people about how you actually craft it, and like then working on the design, like how can we like Sam had ideas of like the sweater of like what we wanted to imply, like little Easter eggs, like try and tell a story, like have some narrative in the outfit by itself, so when people see it they can kind of like in the mind place they can kind of look at it and it kind of tells an additional story, like another layer on top of like what you're doing. So and just like on the construction level, if you just think of like just the character craft itself of like understanding how it's built, and then that informs on like for me like how I can actually do it and like execute it like the right way. So then people like in the community can look at it and go, okay, like right, they've really taken the time to understand the detail, the nuance. We didn't just like kind of make something up. So like when people like an actual like when cosplay people try to build these things, they're like, oh, this actually functions. Like I can actually build it. So that was like really important, and I really like that process because there's so much nuance you get from seeing the physical garment like that you just don't get from doing it straight digitally as well.
Yeah, especially because we use live action as well.
Yeah, that was like the key. I was like, is there live action? I was like, okay, cool. This is great.
We're gonna build it.
Yeah, we're gonna build it. We're not gonna try and like make this up. Especially with like Wake suit as well. Like suits they're kind of simplistic but very complex at the same time. So kind of getting into the nuance of that, like working with tailors and like just talking with them. I remember when we went to Sauma, like on site in Helsinki. It was like we just went down there, and I could just talk with them and like garment choices, like what would like if we have elbow patches, because that was like a key item that Sam wanted, to make sure, because it's like part of his like uniform, like what he has on screen. So it was like, if we have that, like, what does this mean in terms of the suit? Like, how do we go about it logically? So that was like, I just find that process really fun. Like, it's just so insightful, like working with a tailor and like how their world works. Like, what are the things that they are concerned with, like, and I can like understand that more deeply.
Do you think we would have done it like that, or would you prefer to do it like that? So like go to a tailor and make the costume physically, and then put it in the game, even without there being live action. Is that like a process that you prefer?
Probably. Yeah. I think because like with the production, we actually kind of left the suit, like Saga and Alan, to the very end. So we wanted to like make sure we like did them kind of at the back end of the production, so that they're like the highest fidelity, because productions go like such a long time in some cases. Like when you're actually going to ship, and you don't want to have made it like a year earlier or 2 years earlier, and you're like, okay, a lot shifted in terms of fidelity. So I kind of like, one reason was like live action, we can kind of push it, so we can just work on the construction. But even if we weren't doing it, I think it's still valid, and it kind of gives you information that you just don't have, which I think for me just makes me feel, kind of settles me down a little bit, so I'm not kind of scrambling, or I don't miss something, like in terms of like the garmentry of how it was done.
How was it updating Alan Wake's? I guess that might be a question for you, Kyle, as well. Like Alan Wake's visual identity from the hoodie and the 6,000
I feel like that's a very
back.
2010 outfit.
No, it is, but like it's so iconic in certain ways, and then it's like it's a sequel, so you have to reinvent it. It's in certain ways, but like John was saying with the elbow patches, there are certain core elements that need to stay the same and that need to stay recognizable. How was that process for both of you?
Well, I think that it also plays a bit into the fact that we had Saga as a new character, and the fact that Wake is no longer in the Pacific Northwest. He's in, this nightmare reality, the dark place. He's been there a long time, so his personality and kind of like his persona and his mental state has shifted, and we wanted to kind of represent that shift just visually as well. And it's not just obviously through the clothes he wears, it's also like this facial hair, and his hair himself has got is longer. There's a raggedness mixed with a cleanness in how he's presented, which that contrast I really like. And because of the fact that we're no longer in the Pacific Northwest, we wanted to bring that kind of visual style more to the Saga experience, and kind of have a new visual identity for the Dark Place and Wake, and there's a lot of people with suits in the Dark Place, Mr. Door, we have Casey, and so I think it's kind of all connected to this overarching visual design that we were going for. But I think that as a player, as I'm playing both sides of that experience, that contrast between Saga and Wake really makes the differences, even though we share quite a lot of stuff, feel unique. So I think it was a really good process, and I think it went really well. And one of the things I really like is when we're getting into, after we've kind of established that visual design, is getting into the details. John talked a bit about how we want to use characters to and their design to inform narrative. But as we're going through the experience, we start layering additional things on that character to signify key story events, or like, so Saga's gets a cut in her eye as we're kind of like, as she gets smacked through Nightingale at the start of the game. So we're trying to tell the story of what the character's been through the character and the visual design laid on top of that kind of base model. And I find that, because that normally is stuff that we do quite really late. So it kind of and we're like, oh, we've added a new,
because of the fidelity.
Well, right? because we're mixing and we're figuring out where are the emotional beats in the story, where it makes sense for us to kind of switch the character's visual design. And we normally have like a limited amount of how many we can do, and it becomes complicated with like, because we have mind place and costumes and all various other things, but and video based cinematics in some instances. So we do it quite late, but once we kind of get that, it's again like when we're making games, like a bunch of cool stuff normally comes in right at the end. So I really enjoyed that, kind of going through that process and kind of going through. Well, at the time we had a confluence page with about a table with about 20 things. Like, what's the state that waits in here? Okay, which outfit is he wearing? Does he look like Scratch at this point? How much blood does he have on him?
That's a different loop. That's like, where are we going now?
Yeah, and Wake has more than one outfit in this game because obviously he comes back and we play as him in the Pacific Northwest. So that was very interesting. Like, how do we do design Scratch, for example, compared, because we also did him obviously in American Nightmare. So
yeah, the tech was really like, with that kind of stuff, I always had it like in my mind like we were going to do it. So I was like, how do we prepare the assets to work seamlessly?
Yeah.
It's like you almost prepare the tech like years earlier. And then when you get to that point where we're actually talking about that stuff, it's like, oh, is that going to work? And it's like, oh, okay, right, everything. Oh, the layered material finally came in. We can actually. So I think I did like a video of like mud, kind of how we could like naturally grow it on the outfit, and we talk about different things of like how we can then trigger that, like what moment. But a lot of that was working with the tech team, and like kind of like Tattoo, the graphics programmer, Janne, just like, okay, are we kind of approaching this the right way? And then when Kyle comes in, he's like, where's the dirt? And I'm like, okay, well, right, we're ready, but we just need to know how many versions are we going to do? And then Kyle's like, can we do 20? No. And then production, so it's like a back and forth between all the teams to like make sure you can do something, deliver on the narrative, but not like break the game or like overload the team with too many things that we can't deliver.
This is going to be a very general question, but was there a lot of new tech that you had to work with for this project, Ilkka and John?
You want to go?
Yeah, well, for us it was kind of like when making Control, we introduced like a whole new animation system to the engine, and for this game it was like more like fine tuning that to kind of be able to bring up like the fidelity, and because we are so much closer and it's kind of slower pace, so details matter a lot more in this one. So
I remember, I can't remember if I talked about this before, but I remember in Quantum Break we couldn't animate our weapons, so we were kind of disguising and re-animated. We were like hiding the weapons off camera because we couldn't animate.
You remember the animation?
I mean, that's a trick that is done very often in game development. In case someone in chat doesn't know, like, oh, we can't afford to animate this for reasons. It's just going to be off camera.
Yeah, we did that in the Night Springs episode with Jesse. When you're putting your weapon in the container, we added that very late because we were like, okay, we originally had that sequence where Jesse actually had a gun fighting against those coffee monsters, but everyone kept trying to kill them, and we were like, we need to take the gun away, and this is really late on, so we're like, we'll add a container and we'll have a robot voice, and we're like, we have no animation bandwidth, and like, hide it all behind the camera, like this is just one of those tricks that we do. But in relation to animation tech, we didn't have animated weapons during Quantum Break, but we added them when we were developing Crossfire, I believe, and then that moved over into a Control, and then we brought that over to Wake. But then the other thing we added, because I really wanted to have like the visible weapons on the character. That's also something, and where they would basically be on your back or in your holster, and you would physically. It comes back to that physicality pillar that we've been talking about from animation. So this idea that you'd physically be able to kind of see the weapons and move them, have them all animated, and that came with a bunch of problems of like especially with the flashlight, because the flashlight with especially our long weapons, they kind of like would create these annoying shadows, and we were like battling for ages on like how do we fix this flashlight problem.
Still nightmares about that.
That was going to be my next question, Ilkka. What was the most, like, with the new tech and updating stuff and bringing the camera forward and everything's closer and trying to keep the animation pillars in mind? What was the most challenging thing to work on? And follow up, how was that challenge overcome?
Well, I mean, Flashlight was a lot just in terms of how much work it was, because everything had to work with and without a flashlight. And there was all this, like, not only work, but we must make sure that the scene is lit properly at all times. Like,
because like we wanted to use like more realistic lighting for the flashlight, especially when it's in its like non-boosted state. obviously you have your kind of flashlight as you're moving around, and then we would go to a more supernatural light when we were boosting. But when it was like non-boosted, we wanted it to kind of act like a real light, which created problems in terms of just like shadows and on how all the. So I think we were doing a bunch of tomfoolery where we would kind of move the flashlight's position based on the gun you were having equipped and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of. But I think end of the day, flashlight was just a question of putting in the work. So it wasn't. There was another one which was kind of tricky for my team and maybe also for the wider team, which was like doing a shooting player against enemies who mainly do melee.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to make those enemies like keep up with the player and be able to be functional.
Yeah, because like we prior to this, like most, I'd say like almost all of our enemies had been range-based enemies with range-based combat. But here we've gone back to like original Alan Wake, obviously where there's more melee-based enemies, and a lot of the people who worked on Alan Wake 2 had not worked on Alan Wake, so we were learning a bunch of stuff how to do kind of like combat, and then a bunch of all this complexity that comes from it can't just kind of be like Alan Wake 1 because we're a generation or two ahead of the last one, so the fidelity needs to be higher, the animation quality needs to be higher. I think that we spent a lot more time on one enemy's animation sets because we had such high fidelity, and they had many different states, so they could go and like search for you, they could be kind of attacking you, they could be kind of unaware of you, so and each state had a different animation set to kind of showcase their personality on the enemy side as well as the kind of player side. So
but there was one thing I'm actually really happy about how we pulled it off, because one problem with the enemies we had for a long time on the game was we still want to like have their attacks take time, like telegraph them and all that. But during that time, the player can move so far into so many different directions, and just like making them able to hit the player without sliding or something, it was a big challenge. And I think the system we ended up with, where they kind of predict where the player is going to be in certain amount of time, and then they're able to break out of their attack and change it to something else so it connects. So I think we ended up with enemies who just look like they're angry and keep attacking, and it's playable, and if you look at their feet, they don't slide really. So putting all that together, I think it was a cool thing.
I think we have some enemy like progress videos, Julius, that we can possibly check out. Let's see, what have we got? We've got Fade Out, Wolf, Grapple gameplay.
Yeah, I mean quadrupeds.
Oh yes, quadrupeds,
That's our first time we'd ever
Yeah.
done a quadruped in a game, actually. And that was... Everyone was like, why are you adding all these things we've never done before into this game?
Yeah, Kyle, why?
Stop it. Stop adding stuff. Because, like, well, I don't know, Ilkka, you want to talk a bit about it? Because, like, obviously, we normally use a motion capture for
Looks like
basically
it's got wearing high
all
heels.
of our stuff, but this was kind of not.
Yeah, that's the thing, and a lot of our like locomotion systems or stuff is built around having a lot of animation, and which we can usually mock up, but then we didn't at least choose to mock up the wolf.
Okay.
We did tests on that, but at the end of the day, it was just like keyframe animated by the animator.
Yeah, we did some tests with dogs.
Yes,
I remember in the mocap volume. Yeah. Okay, but it was keyframe animated in the end.
Yeah.
Those dogs ended up looking too cute all the time. Not evil enough.
Was that the issue?
I don't.
I mean, that was a thing. Like when the motion is coming from, like it would be a dog.
Yeah.
You're not getting a wolf in there.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we do have them in Finland, but...
Yeah, so very easily pick up like small things that make it look like a nice dog.
Oh, it's
like,
and
it's not so fun to shoot them. Like that was a big thing, how to make the wolf shootable, right? So
yeah, I mean, I remember for the longest time during development, people were going like, "I'm not killing that wolf because it makes a like sound." They were yelp, and we were like, "Yeah, well, can we tone down the yelp a little bit, but make them sound more evil?" But yeah, it took us a while to get to the point where people didn't feel bad shooting the dogs.
I mean, we did shift it though, didn't we, visually as well?
We added all the darkness to them. Yeah. I mean, if you saw it in the initial video, they were kind of looking more like normal wolves. Yeah. And then we gradually, over time, just made them look a bit more like supernatural, evil wolves.
Yeah. Like they have that take and kind of look and glowing eyes and stuff. Yeah.
What is the challenge in like with our tech and with our equipment of like doing animations of quadrupeds versus bipeds? if I'm not asking the right question,
No,
feel
no,
free to
no,
answer something
no,
else.
it's a good question. I mean, we actually had to, because our animation is typically mocap based. That's
Yeah.
how, like our workflows are built around that, and then like to work with quadruped, it was like we started building different kinds of rigs for the characters that you use to animate them that are better fitting for like animating from scratch as opposed to like editing motion capture. And we were doing this like wolves in a different software than we would do our human characters. So
Right.
we kind of like had to add a lot of like pipelines to that software so we can export animations conveniently. Yeah. So
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Very cool,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that I'm glad that we did the wolves in the base game because it allowed us to do the sequence in Night Springs episode where we have the wolf and Scratch.
It's so good.
We were very close to removing the sequence where the bike turns into a wolf because it looks stupid for the longest time, and we didn't have the context of a lot of stuff. And I remember going like, we need to remove this because this is just going to end up being bad. And then Molly, I got like swarmed by like a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Going like, you better not. If you cut this from the game, we are going to riot. And so I was like, okay. We will try and figure out a way to get it in.
Just need the numbers.
I know. Yeah.
No, I always remember like back in the day on QB when you wanted a wolf then or like a dog, and I was like, we can't do it. We just don't have the tech to render fur that well.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, when we did the wolf, I was like, this is, like, a good time. We can actually do it now.
Yeah.
I remember you being, like, disappointed.
Yeah,
we
couldn't do animated weapons. We couldn't do fur.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that one of the biggest differences when I think back to the development of the game in terms of characters was when we got Saga's hair in. Like, because for the longest time, like, she didn't have that kind of cool hair that you spent a long time making, basically. And I remember when we got that in, I was like, this actually feels like the character now that we got. So.
Yeah. I had like, because I remember when like Janne came over and he was like, when we had a really early placeholder, he was like, when is the placeholder going to get updated? And I was like, not yet. He was like, okay.
For context, Janne is the art director.
And it was just something. So I think I did a quick, like, a new updated jacket and, like, model and everything. And then it was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, just to get something.
An
in-between version.
Not final, but just something that rendered a bit. Because it broke the image of the game so much. It was like, it was good to update it. But then the hair was like a whole story in itself.
Let's put it up on screen and you tell the story.
So it all began a long time ago. But basically, like, we... like in terms of the styling, we kind of knew what we wanted to do already, but I ended up working with like a bunch of like hairstylists here.
For Saga's hair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Helsinki, and then also in LA, like working, like figuring out like how we want it to be. We knew it needed to be like a ponytail because we wanted to have some secondary motion, which kind of contributed to like how the character moves on screen. So that kind of adds like a more fidelity to the quality. And then just like how we wanted to do it in terms of the tech, there was a couple of things that we didn't have, we were kind of waiting on, and then that came in.
Okay.
So, and then working with the partners to actually create it, giving feedback. And we worked with the stylists to kind of build like a huge reference library that we can give them and be like, this is what we want. We want you to make it exactly like this.
Okay.
So we didn't want anybody to like kind of make things up. Again, it kind of goes back to that kind of, we want like the baseline, which is like the ground truth, which in essence is the real deal. Mm-hmm. So we kind of styled it, got all the reference gathering, got information about, how glossy it is, how it looks when it's pulled back, how does it move, and then compiled all that, and then we just were able to execute like the style. And it kind of just went really well with the partners, and then I worked on it myself because I worked on Saga's outfit for the majority. A couple of other character artists help as well, but just like working with the actors, making sure that they're like it represents them, how they see, and so that was really enjoyable. Same with like everything, like the kind of the coloring and making sure the tones are right, like with the grading of the game, and then how it moves and the riggers. It's like a whole team contribution, but it was like it just kind of went really well. I didn't really have any there wasn't any like big problems when we did it. it was very.
How
cool.
did we? I can't remember. Like, because we do something when obviously because we have rain a lot in the game.
Yes.
How did we deal with that? Was it real time?
Yeah. So the VFX team, I think they just kind of ramp up the kind of the gloss.
Yeah.
In line with the rain. So when it rains, everything gets a bit wet. We have like kind of permeable, like porous materials, so we can kind of define. So it works in the same way as the jacket. I think in the early days when we were doing the tech, I wanted to have it so the sweater kind of had a different feel. So because it's like a bit more porous, it kind of absorbs, whereas the jacket
heavier, right?
Yeah, the jacket kind of drops off. But we did like a bunch of stuff with like raindrops, making sure that worked with the character. So working with the VFX team and the rain system, and kind of make sure that assets like done in the right way, like so that they can actually do their job.
I want to see if we have the sweater. Oh, President Scratch, who is one of our lovely Discord mods in the chat, says her hair is perfect. Thank you so much for that. As a person of color, that means so much to me. That makes me happy. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of, it goes back to like, we don't want to break like the reality. We want it to be consistent. So like with the fidelity, it has to be kind of consistent through the whole image. So I was looking at what they were doing with the trees and everything. I was like, so we really need to like, to get this right. So, but not only just for the visual, but for animation as well. So that it kind of, and I think when we all saw it kind of go in, I just remember everybody commenting on it, like they were like, "Oh my god, like this is so cool!" Like in the meetings, and that was really rewarding part.
We also, it's not something that comes to mind when you immediately think about when we're designing character, but something that I think that when you're playing, that we think about is like secondary motion on the character.
I was gonna ask, yeah.
So
why is that sort of important that her hair had secondary motion as well?
Yeah, it's her hair. It's like how the jacket moves, and even on like just because when you're on enemies as well, when you're kind of looking at them for such a long time, if everything is just super static, it becomes this, as John alluded to, it kind of breaks the immersion. Everything is, you can tell something's not quite right when things don't move believably. So when we are trying to design, like, and the gun on the back kind of was a part of that, like this idea that we can get some secondary motion on the character. And when we were designing, for example, the Cynthia costume, like her having that kind of long, flowy gown, was kind of having the ability for when she because she does quite a lot of horizontal movement, and having the character's outfit move with that, I think it just adds that layer of believability that kind of immerses you in the experience. So
it always kind of makes me giggle a bit because like early on, like in production, like my wife posed for like the garment, so it's pretty much like I kind of adjusted the body shape and like sculpted it and stuff, but I'm always like, I kind of can see my wife in there a little bit. So it's always cool, like seeing it, like people remark, "Oh, it looks really good." I'm like, yeah.
Anything else you wanted to say?
No, that's it. That's everything. No, but also with the tech, like on the sweater, we were able to do like little bits of like when we got like the fur, like with the hair and the fur, like all kind of uses the same system. So we were able to like add like little bits of fur to the wall, just like small little details that we can do. So I worked with like the tech team, like Ilmarie, who's like part of the rigging team. He was able to kind of work like do a whole new custom like thing with Bifrost where it could like generate these fur cards. I kind of hand painted the fur based on reference, and then he kind of took the sweater I did and like kind of mass generated like a whole bunch of like dense furry kind of textures on it, and then we were able to like put that in game. And I thought that was like, it was like stuff we just never kind of had the chance to do before, because like, so the time it's moved on so much since the original. It's like we can actually kind of do that stuff now, which is really cool.
Shall we have a look at the look dev video for Alan and chat up a little bit about that, and then we can take a break?
Sure.
How's that?
That's good.
Oh yeah, so like these kind of videos, like I built this kind of stage lighting where I just wanted to kind of get a feel for like the outfits. So like part of the production, like early on, we didn't really have final lighting or anything like that till like later on in production, or things would maybe break, or that, you know, in production things can happen like that. So I just kind of built this stage where we can actually see the characters kind of in a somewhat of a final form, like with really nice quality lighting, and like reviewing the hair and the suit and the materials, and like I could tune it all by myself, like independently.
Can you remember how we came to the decision to use that satchel.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's kind of a funny story as well, because I remember like we were tossing and turning over like the lamp, right? We were like, oh, we have this lamp and we want to we need to holster it
and
somehow.
we needed to fit again. The physicality aspect was
Yes.
important, so we needed somewhere to put it that was like somewhere physical.
So I think like I actually mentioned this at the GDC talk. Like I always like loved the film Misery, like Paul Sheldon, and he has a satchel.
Yeah.
And I ended up kind of using that as like a base inspiration and just kind of took it and did a different kind of took that as an inspiration, but like changed the design slightly, and then we tweaked it a little bit so that on screen I think I did some like concepts from the back where we could see how it sat on his back, and you know we had like I saw one of the comments talking about the lamp peeking out, and that was like a kind of a gameplay mechanic of like we wanted it to like start flickering, and so you kind of get an idea. So we're kind of working with Kyle, you know, in terms of like the gameplay, making sure we deliver on that, but then also keep it kind of interesting on screen. So when you look at it, you're like, it just adds like more information to the character.
Yeah.
Like, so it was kind of, but also kind of ties to him as a writer, because in Misery, Paul Sheldon, he's a writer and he goes through his own nightmares. So it's like all these kind of things. And I just love that film so much. So, but yeah, like we were able to kind of imply some of those kind of details. And yeah, I think
I remember when we were like doing the announcement trailer.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're going to introduce Alan in this announcement trailer. And then I remember thinking like, how can people react to a guy who's got a satchel and a suit on? Like, I was like, it's like one of those things like,
what do you mean?
yeah, it's in like, it's
Elaborate.
It doesn't seem like the most heroic of characters. Like when you look at him as a person,
Yeah.
like, he looks like a professor who's got a satchel.
Yeah.
He's going to go to university and do a lecture on
That everyone has a
supernatural.
crush on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember, and then when we saw the concepts and we saw the kind of stuff coming through, I was like, okay, yeah, I think this will be. It's kind of unique enough that it becomes like it asks questions of the viewer, like what is that about? Like what's this lamp about? Why does he look like that? And I think that was just very interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of builds your own like player narrative. Like you kind of make up your own ideas, your own conclusions about the satchel itself. And I think the one thing I like, because his suit is quite, you know, the material is quite flat, it's quite toned down. But like having the satchel, it kind of breaks up the image a bit. So you get like this nice like leather response, which gives you just a little bit more information. Like, and it reacts to the world stuff. So in Dark Place, you know, you get like small reflections kind of beaming off it, especially when it like in the rain, when it really starts pouring, you kind of get that response. And then the lamp peeking out. And I remember as like kind of, because Mayu, one of the character artists, I worked with on the asset with her, and she kind of did that part, and we were like, we just want the lamp to be kind of like this, like we were just like turning it so she's kind of like looking at the camera slightly on
peeking
screen.
out. Yeah.
So it's
well, I mean, like it's one of the things, you know. So we do a lot of concepting where characters face on to us, but one of the most important parts is that we actually try and look at it from behind the character, obviously, because it's a third-person game, and that's where you're looking at the character for 95% of the experience. So we almost have to create like a heroic, cool-looking character from the back, not from the front. And like a lot of the satchel's positioning and placement was, as John says, related to like, okay, there was some kind of diegetic feedback that we wanted to give the player about, you know, you can use the lamp here, but also just it just needed to look cool ultimately, like when you're kind of playing. So
yeah, I think the lamp was just like a cool piece by itself.
Very
because like Antti Pomio, one of the character artists, he worked on that a little bit as well, and then I took it and I worked on it a bit, and then we had other partners work on it, and then I kind of finalized it with the materials with Janne, the art director in game. So it was like a nice piece, and we like modeled it down to like all the details, so the glass, the filament, it all kind of works like how it should. We kind of made adjustments because it was a bit short and a bit small, and then we kind of tweaked that. And I remember just playing with
the filament was again one of those things which came online super late, like to make it look like an actual like lamp.
I think I remember fixing like the refraction in the way it bends, and we just didn't submit it because it was like we don't want to compromise the build, and it like looked good anyway. And I remember like where the dirt was, I kind of tweaked it so if you went in like photo mode, you could see it like really bend.
Yeah.
So you could put like Wake's head behind it and then see it,
and then kind of
see his head like going like. Like so I thought of it, but there's like small little things like lit details of the dirt and the mud I was able to get in, which was nice. So But yeah, like all the team, contributing is like such an enjoyable thing.
Well, fantastic. Chat, I hope this has given you a lot of basis for questions. We are going to take a little break and we're going to, on Twitch, play some ads. Check in with your body, take your meds, hydrate, take a little break, do whatever you need to do. And we will be back with more chat on characters and more videos and your questions in about 5 minutes. See you soon.
Raoul, open book, stay in my crowd, fit together like the shotgun fits in Hemingway's mouth. I carved down my plot, I write with your blood. I created this world, and first came the word. You have no light in sight, just in this darkness to fight. The horror story comes true. I'm dark, twisted, and cruel. I'm in the rain, trickling down. I'm the sickness of this town. I'm the ants inside your walls, the quiet knocking on your door. It's not your story to write. Scratch out your words in the night. When the writer is in doubt, my turn to come out. Twisted and cruel.
regret to capture you. Call the sleepers from your crystal heart. Shape my story, tear every page apart. Disciples when you left your heart. We burn away the shadows, they strike us.
We're back. Oh my goodness. Hi, we're back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are here with the Alan Wake 2 dev stream. We are talking all things characters. So far, we've talked about gameplay animation, we've talked about character design, and we've talked about other stuff. Satchels, hair, sweaters. I want to talk about Cynthia and the animation. I was going to drop you, Lewis, surreptitiously a picture of you pulling the
the wire. Yeah.
Thank you, the wire to make the actor sort of float in the air. But I sat down and Lewis was like, right, we're going back in. I was like, oh, it's okay. But what we're going to do while I dig up this picture is we are going to open up the chat to your questions. So, so if you've got any questions about character art, gameplay animation, Kyle's Nirvana t-shirt collection, anything about the sort of the combat and the gameplay of Alan Wake 2 as it relates to characters and also enemies. In Twitch, you will write exclamation point ask. Okay, exclamation point ask, and then a space, and then you will write your question, and we have a bot that will get all your questions together. And if you're on YouTube, you click in the upper right-hand corner of the chat. There are the 3 dots, and you can click on them. And there is a questions category, and you can write your question in there. And you can ask them to John, to Ilkka, to Kyle, or to all of them. And we'll pick them and ask them. Oh my God, we are already getting stuff in. That's all right. But yeah. Yeah, can you tell us about because we mentioned Cynthia in regard to fabric moving and animation, but I want to hear about how we got her to look so cool when she was floating in the air, how that was done, because we said that a lot of our animation is mocap based.
Yeah. And this
I'm
wasn't...
going to try and find the picture.
Okay, cool. But yeah, basically, like we built this wire rig in the studio, which enables us to pull the actor into the air. And basically, that's what we did. Like we have awesome actor Thomas who was acting as Cynthia, and we kept hanging like probably like half a meter up in the air, just kind of acting out the things as if it was any gameplay animation.
Is that similar to like how you did Control, like with Jesse floating?
Yes, it is. Like in Control, we didn't have that in house, so we had to go to external studios to shoot those things. But yeah,
now we have it in house.
Now we can do it here, and we use the same system for example, like if there's an explosion, we can pull the actor and give this impact.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
That's very cool.
I think we have one sequence where Scratch is like picking up a character and throwing them, and we were using the rope system to do that.
That's very cool. Let's see, Julius, I've sent you the picture on Slack.
Okay.
If we're okay with showing it, no rush. Let's see. Oh my goodness.
Cynthia and Taken in general were because we obviously changed them a bit from the first game.
Yeah.
We always had this strong theme of dark water, and Cynthia in particular had that theme quite heavily showcased in the Valhalla nursing home. But in general, John, I remember us talking a bit about how can we make the Taken look scary and utilize the theme of water. And you came up with their visual design where it looks like their skin is a bit thinner, and there's like you can see kind of like a bit more translucent.
Yeah. We did like Mateusz kind of worked on Cynthia, so we kind of sat down and talked about like with skin tech, like how we could kind of make the subsurface a little bit more translucent, and then I think we did like details like the skin kind of pulling off in places, but
Mhm.
not too much, so it kind of felt over the top. But just where with the Neon, like how it looks visually, like little bumps. We used a similar thing for all of the
I was
Taken.
going to say, because all the Taken have the same kind of underlying
Yeah.
theme of water, like
Yeah.
you know, Cauldron Lake and dark water. So
Exactly. Yeah,
that
we
was kind of
shared
like
it.
the starting point from our like visual design of like the Taken in terms of making them look scary, but not in a traditional zombie way. That was kind of like
Mhm.
what we didn't want. We didn't want them to look like they were a zombie, but we still wanted them to look kind of supernaturally like possessed, and that was kind of like water was our starting point basically for that. So
Yeah, it's really helpful for me as well in production because it's like we just made one eyeball and we just used it like everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was like tuned heavily, like with Janne a lot, like to make sure it kind of had the right feel. Because the first attempts were a bit zombie-ish.
Mhm.
You don't want to kind of, they're not a zombie. It's almost like they've been underwater for like a long time or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we were looking at reference of like what does someone look like if they're just submerged in water for ages. That's
Yeah.
where that kind of like skin peeling off kind of stuff came from as well.
Yeah, I was thinking of like John Carpenter's The Fog, you know, when they find that body on the table and it's like a morgue similar to like how we find Nightingale, and they talk about how the body's only been dead for a bit, but it feels like it's been underwater for like years, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I thought that was a really cool detail, and I love that film as well.
Yeah.
Pulling all my
I've not
favorite
seen-
films in.
I've not seen either of them. I need to watch
You're missing
them.
out. You're
And
missing
both
out.
Stephen King ones, eh?
John
John
Carpenter.
Oh, John Carpenter. No, but
Stephen King is
Stephen King wrote The Fog, right?
no.
Or was that The Mist?
The Mist,
I'm really
yeah.
showing my entire ass here. I'm sorry. I'm a fake horror fan. Anyway, we did find the picture. I really like that photo, and I love that we managed to do that in-house personally. So.
Yeah, I mean we built a whole new setup for that.
Yeah.
For this, so
Yeah, it's cool.
And we'll use it for other stuff, I'm sure. So
Yeah, that's like me waking up in the morning and my kid pulling me out of bed.
I'm just looking at the photo, like, you know, when you study how to show force in like posing of a character, like
Yeah.
this photo's got it. Like,
Yeah, right? It's so good. I think
way.
Michelle sent this in Slack like ages ago. So, right. I think Julius is pointing at a question. So there's one question from YouTube that says, favorite most difficult / annoying thing to work on, but came out the most satisfying.
Oh, that's so broad.
It's
I think
Please
for
be
animation,
honest,
that
yeah.
one, like Binder enemy was certainly the one.
Remind me what the binder enemy, which one
it's
that
the one where you meet them in the Valhalla nursing home, where you're entering the into the medical wing and or the wellness center as we call it in the actual game, and then basically it's the one the Taken who comes out and she's like reflected.
Oh shit, the reflected one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with the plane. I
That
remember.
that was the enemy, one of the first enemies we ever built, and we were like, oh, yeah, this is kind of like the style we want to go for. But that enemy took so long to make.
It was so challenging
Oh,
because
please, yeah.
because it has this reflection thing going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not static. It's like dynamic. If you push the character down, he will start gradually disappearing in this plane of reflection, and just wrapping your head around that, like creatively and technically, was a lot.
It was so funny in production when it like broke and you could just see like
you can see all the actual limbs of the character
God,
sticking out
yeah.
of the plane.
Yeah, but I remember when we were talking about that and Herder, like the lead character like artist, he was like, I was sure he was like not going to do it because it was kind of like I just passed it on to him and he was like, yeah, we could just solve it in the rig and do all this, and I was like, really? I was like, I'm sure we've got it. No, he's like, we can handle that. I was like, very cool.
Yeah.
So it's like painful.
But like
not.
you know, we tried to do a lot of, you know, talking about narrative, how important it is. We tried to do a lot of build up, even for our enemies, like new enemy introductions, to the whole of the sequence inside the Valhalla nursing home in the wellness center. Basically affects as like a kind of build up and reveal of that one enemy type.
Yeah.
We have the whole like backstory about who they were and how they became possessed, and which is kind of revealed through manuscripts that you find that they've kind of puked up inside the medical wing. So and that's why like even because it took such a long time for us to kind of build that enemy, we did try and spend quite a lot of time to kind of reveal them so that reveal becomes as impactful as it can be. So.
I also like one animation I really like about the game. It was done by Teemu Kutvonen, one animator from our team. It's how when you kill this enemy, they kind of collapse onto the ground as a body. and very subtly like transform into a regular human from this. It's
I do remember that.
I
Yeah.
remember that. That's so cool.
And it's funny because that character's locomotion is also heavily done through keyframing, right? Versus kind of like same as the wolf. Did Temu do both the wolf and the
he got the hard ones.
Let's see. Okay, why did you make Alan so soggy? I have to ask the real question from Twitch.
So soggy.
Yes, he's soggy.
What do you mean soggy?
Well, it's very wet in
I mean,
wet.
the dark place is just raining all the time. So like, and he's out in the rain all the time. So he's just wet because of the rain. I guess that's the answer.
I do remember, like, I spoke with Jan. I was like, can we do like little water droplets? So, like when he does hit rain, like it doesn't just soak in immediately. You get wet. You kind of see there's little drops on the surface, and then they soak in. And I just think he just like.
But it's a metaphor as well, you know, because like rain represents darkness in our game quite a lot, and he's in the rain a lot. And you know, as the course of the story, and you're in the dark place, he's absorbing a lot of that darkness, and he becomes. You can see him just the way he looks visually. If you look at him at the start of the live action and then the end, he just looks drastically different.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that kind of character arc goes. So you know, he's the darkness is in the water, and he's absorbing all of it. So.
Yeah,
and soggy.
Yeah,
I think
so he ends up soggy.
Yeah, and the loops, so he did the different hairstyles, so you kind of feel that a little bit. So it has some narrative element to it.
Yeah, his hair changes, like his beard change, and you know, us doing like beard changes and hair changes in live action for Ilkka, we're like trying to arrange the shoot. We're like, you need to have, you need to have like this level of beard. He's like, okay, I have to try and figure out how do I grow the beard? How fast can you grow your beard, Ilkka? If like I was doing it, I'd be like a year. Before you get anything.
And he's a lot like me, just shaving,
you just kind of
wake up
back again.
You wake up the next day.
That's lucky because we would have been screwed if it wasn't like that.
He needs to have the beard for live action, but for facial capture he needs to not
have a beard.
So it's like a scheduling challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to schedule those like different recordings.
Let's see. From Venetian Copper on on YouTube, what are the challenges of expressing every character's personality and quirks visually, especially when it comes to movement and dialogue? I think with movement we can answer that pretty well. I think this is both for Ilkka and for John.
I guess we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, didn't we? In like the locomotion states.
Yeah, we talked about that, and it's of course. In game is the typical challenge is that you don't see the face of the character. That like the usual way to show these things is out of the options, and you kind of have to do it through body language a lot, and it kind of has to be very clear to read to the player, but at the same time you don't want to go overboard and make it look just still have to kind of keep it real on some level. So it's just a balance act how to do that.
Let's see. This one. Were there any strict instructions from Kyle or the writing team for how to design the characters? For example, were you told that Tim Breaker can't have a mustache, etc.?
Actually, the Tim designs, I think I was like pushing it like loads because I was like with the different like beats where there's like the noir state where it was like, oh, it
You mean Night Springs? Yeah, in Night Springs.
Yeah.
Night Springs, yeah?
Yeah, so
it's got different.
Yeah, I remember in production we were like, shall we just do one? I was like, I think we'll do 5.
I think it more came for Tim. I remember we were having that discussion about like what should Tim look like as he moves through those different realities, because you know there's one approach where like Tim himself is the same consistent character as he moves through the realities to kind of make it feel like you are moving through those realities as one character, versus what we ended up doing whereby so like he kind of takes on the form of the version of it, that reality itself. Yeah. So like as the player kind of moves through those realities, he's kind of taking on that form. And that came about for, I think originally we were like, well, let's keep it the same. And then you were like, well, I think actually it'd be more interesting if we changed it. And then we were just like, okay, let's double check with narrative to make sure that like from the rules of our like these kind of like multiverse like time multiple verses of like traveling through them, how does that kind of work law wise? And I think that's what we ended up with. So I think we're better because it makes each one more interesting. So
yeah, I remember with I think with Sam, like we were saying, like what was in his head, or like what can we actually do like with what we've got basically. So I was like, oh, I think we've got this and I can kit bash this into this. And I did the lineup and just kept iterating on that, and it was kind of cool. I mean, it was like more work, but I thought like it made the experience really fun and interesting. Like especially like I really like the noir kind of the black and white with the mustache,
yeah.
like a little bit like slick back hair. I thought that was like really cool.
I like we laughed so much whenever we played that episode, and Tim lands the first time in the first reality, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
So every time we now play that animation on any other character, someone else goes like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Let's see. I would like a different one, maybe. Hold on.
Okay.
I just saw it. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Is there any aspect of a character that you wish you could have explored more in the game?
I mean, I think we a lot of the additional aspects of characters in the main game that we wanted to explore, we kind of utilized the expansions to do some of that exploration.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of my favorite characters is Rose, and I think that like we kind of touched on, like we got a good glimpse of her in the base game, but I think that we kind of like we're able to explore that kind of like personality trait quite a lot more inside the Night Springs DLC. So I definitely think the team utilized some of the expansion work to kind of do some of that exploration.
Okay. How long did it take to perfect the reload animations for the weapons in the game? Ilkka, is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, it's probably for me.
Yeah, especially Alan's revolver. It's so amazing that it's all I can pay attention to when reloading, says the person.
Love it. Yuri, I hope you're watching. He's the animator of that. I don't remember exact like times. I think it was usually like we worked on a weapon like a week-ish, but then
I mean, we kind of like everything is kind of driven by animation, but we do have obviously like when we're like reload times is kind of a key part combat balancing.
Yeah.
So I can't remember how our system worked. If the designers tweaked up a number and the animation adapted, or we kind of tried to fit the animation to the number. Can you remember?
We got a ballpark,
yeah,
and then we basically worked into that. And we adjusted if needed. There wasn't a lot of adjustment.
Yeah, we did a lot of like, we need to do things with like interruptions of the reload animation, depending if you try and break out of it. And we did partial reloads of the weapon. So like, if you break out early, we'd still reload something, but it wouldn't be everything. So so those kind of systems were kind of built as well.
I think like the kind of what we were always working on animation side, we wanted to show the sense of urgency in the reload. Like that's how it happens when you reload in combat. Like you wish like, why can it come? But at the same time, we couldn't make it fast. Like, you know, it still had to take a certain amount of time to work for the gameplay. So we were kind of trying to, how do we show the urgency without making it fast? And there's that, and there's kind of you have to divide your attention between the weapon and like the enemy in front. So that was just interesting animation challenge. And to fully answer the question, that like we did, of course, do it in passes. So once we got the first pass of reloading, then like towards the end of the project, we went back in and added detail. And then always the same thing, but where do we put the flashlight? And how does it not cast a shadow from...
everything was the same. Reaction, everything was the same.
I'll pick yours now, Julius. Could you tell us a little about the Kalevala Knight's outfit design, John? About the process and the priorities.
Yeah. That was like, I think we did it quite late, but again, we worked like with an embroider on the design, and Sam had kind of specific designs that he wanted to call out and like how we wanted to lay it out. So I think we worked with Sam quite a lot on like these specific patches, and like the whole logo was done by like Liha, like our partner, in terms of the graphics with Janne.
Yep.
And then in terms of like building it, we kind of again did like the live action thing where we worked with the embroiders to build the real deal. I think I've actually got a picture with it on. I should have sent that, but it's just of the actual leather jacket.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, like and then just like building it, we did like a scan of the actual asset, and then we just reproduced that like digital double style. That was it, really.
Okay. Let's see. And all of those costumes are downstairs.
Yeah, they're in the 007 room.
They are, yeah.
We've got like a big wardrobe of all the costumes from various different games.
Yeah.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, I keep saying like it'd be great if we had like almost like them on like props on mannequins in like
it would be nice.
I think we should all go to like some kind of like cosplay event wearing different outfits that we've got downstairs.
I feel like poor Mio would kill us.
Yeah, there'll be beer over it and food and all sorts of stuff.
Let's see. That's all right. This one? Okay, there's been a lot of debate about this, but is Scratch's hair longer than Alan's, or is it just styled differently?
It's just styled differently.
Yeah.
Basically, we try to keep them the same because it makes sense. Like because like at that moment when in the jail cell. I mean, spoilers, but like when you kind of realize it's Scratch, we kind of wanted that to feel like he takes the jacket and kind of just slicks his hair back. Like Sam was very specific about, he's kind of just pushed it back basically. So we try to just keep it the same. Or as close as we can. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but we try to think about it in terms of the narrative. Like at that moment, it's the same hairstyle. It's just pushed back.
Yeah. We're scrolling through the questions. Oh, was it? Hold on. Was a Taken Bear in production at all? I remember seeing concept art of one. I think that was from the Taken Bear concepts. Was from the original concept for Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, we did have a Taken Bear at one point.
Yeah.
But we felt that like if you think about where a bear lives and where it would be, like we didn't feel we had enough space in the environment to properly tell the story of where that would come from.
Yeah.
But we did have one. It would look freaking cool actually.
Yeah,
I did like it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I remember doing the teeth. And
Well, we've got the tech now. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think we actually have an asset for it, to be honest.
We do.
Might need some animation.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, we can't just have it moving and we're walking it, like sliding around.
No, listen, I remember early in development when you have the wolf encounter in the woods, and the wolves, either the animation wasn't working or it wasn't in yet, and they were just skating around.
It's funny, like, I remember we did a lot of usability tests and everyone was just like, this game isn't scary, or like the atmosphere's not there, and etc. And we're like, yeah, but you're playing in like a grey box environment with T-posing characters, and like it's not going to work. Like especially on a horror game, like it's only really at the end when you get the audio in, you get the visual effects, the atmospherics, like the characters I believe moving in believable ways that like that all works. Like it's just you have to kind of project quite a lot about what you think it's going to be. So.
And that's a specific thing about horror games. Like you cannot break the atmosphere. Like if there's an animation bug and it like pulls you out of the world, then you fail.
Yeah,
like, keeping up the horror.
Yeah.
So
it's difficult. I remember we having many meetings going like, we have to kind of fix everything because otherwise it's not going to work. So.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for upcoming game artists on how to best approach storytelling in your character designs? If that question makes sense, lol, added the question asker.
Well, I don't know if it's advice, but I think it all just comes from narrative, right? Like the story and like working with Sam's really important on that. Like where you get the information from him, that's really key because that's like the foundation, and then everything springboards from that.
I think it's details matter, right? I think that's kind of important. Like as John was mentioning, like every single like patch on the jacket from the Kalevala Knights jacket is actually something that we actually went through and went, okay, this should look like this. It has this meaning, even though players don't even necessarily see it. If they do look at it, it's there. And we did this throughout the whole game, like the environments, every single sign, every single like graffiti, every single detail. It meant something. It wasn't just stuck there because we have to put something there. So a lot of the time it was like Slack going to narrative channel going like, what goes here? What the hell is this about? How do we fill this up? Like, and this is like armies of questions about how can we bring the narrative into the game as much as possible so it actually has like a meaning and makes sense and is believable.
Yeah, and that's like every department. I remember talking with Clay and then concept and being like, what is this? I need to understand why did we do this? And they've obviously got information, and then we kind of build on that. So kind of collaborating like on all the information levels so that you can get it in. Yeah, everything has a reason, basically. If it doesn't have a reason, it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Especially in the dark place. The intro, this one. How did the idea of running through the door animation come about? When you press the run button and Alan just kind of slams through the door? How did that come about?
Speedruns.
Yeah, I wonder if this came from design first.
No, it did.
really.
Yeah, I mean, it came from us wanting the ability to support running through doors, basically.
Ah.
And like, because otherwise you have to kind of stop, press the button, you
Yes.
open the door, and then
Yes.
you move through. And in a game where we were kind of like encouraging players to run away if they didn't have enough resources, getting stuck at a door would be quite frustrating. So we wanted to add, full sprints through doors, and then we obviously were like, okay, what does that look like? How does that feel like?
Yeah.
And we wanted to give it, one of the pillars that we had for combat and movement in general was like desperation, like the feeling of like feeling desperate. So a lot of those actions that they take, they're kind of like they result in a more desperate act. So even running through a door, we try and make it feel like it's not like very precise. It's very kind of like just need to get through it kind of motion. So
Yeah, ooh. How often did you find loose script pages lying around the studio?
they were all in Sam's room.
Yeah,
I
they
think
are.
I
It's
mean, like
just
there's like a massive pile of
stack,
them. Yeah.
That's all right. The intro of the game is phenomenal. How long did it take to build up?
I mean, it's hard to know. When you say intro, is it like the prologue or like the first chapter? I mean,
That's a great question. Yeah.
I mean, the prologue. It took us a while to do the prologue, mainly because we had a sequence in the prologue where you were being chased by an enemy, by a bunch of cultists, and we wanted to make it feel like you as a player could run away, but we also knew you had to get caught. So we had, no matter which way you ran, we had to kind of make sure there was someone there who could grab you and sacrifice you. And then we were, but the difficulty came that we had a route that we want, like an experience we wanted the player to go through. So it was like a specific route that was designed so that you would kind of like travel through the forest, kind of stumbled. Then there'd be more cultists who come out, try and shoot you, and you keep running. So we wanted to have this route, but at the same time, we couldn't control where players wanted to go. So we were using like other cultists who would come out to try and force the player to run away. And then, trying to get the player to run away is just a difficulty by itself. Like a lot of players, when we first did it, were just like, who are those people? Oh, hey, how's it going? Kill. Okay, this isn't work. So like, there's a lot of like, how do we make the player do what we wanted them to do? So that took quite a long time. And then the whole opening of the game, well, I mean, it took the full development basically, like about the four years we took to kind of work on the project, because we didn't just develop the start and then work on the middle and then the end. Everything kind of came up at the same time. So yeah.
Grab that one. What? Yeah, from YouTube.
Character perspective.
Yeah, so from a character perspective, was there anything that you had to adjust or sacrifice to maintain the balance between psychological horror, storytelling, and gameplay?
I mean, from my perspective, we wanted to keep the characters grounded. So, the weapons that we have, they're all believable. We didn't add rocket launchers or, I mean, I'm sure they'd be fun to use in a game like this, but it just didn't really make sense in terms of the kind of vibes we were going with. We referenced a lot of like, Coen brother movies in terms of the weapon design, especially on Saga side. And so, even though we could create cool prototypes and cool game mechanics out of weapons like that, we were kind of constraining ourselves based on the narrative again, and then kind of the world we were trying to portray. So yeah, I think weapons is obviously one aspect, and the same goes for like the type of like throwables you would have. They needed to be things that would make sense in that world. We didn't give like the character frag grenades because it just doesn't really work in the context of the environment we're in. So and the gameplay we were trying to create. So definitely on the game side, we tried to work within the constraints of the visual and narrative setups that we were working in. So it's one aspect for sure.
Who was your favorite NPC design and why?
Pat Main, easy.
Pat Main.
Mine's Norman.
Mine's Norman as well. Yeah.
I really like Pat because from the original he was like the radio guy.
Yeah.
And he was like one of the early ones we did, and like it kind of proved the pipeline.
I like Mandy May as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. She's cool. I think Pat, there was something about him because it felt really tonally right for the game. Like he had that kind of feel, like his clothes were a little bit loose and hanging. He was a bit hunched. He had like the balding hair and the glasses. So he has like, everything for me. So maybe he could be the hero one day.
Yeah. Pac-Man spin-off radio game.
Yeah, like radio DJ. Yeah, I love it.
Ilkka, any favorites?
I'm blanking out on their name, but it's the couple that you meet in the beginning of the game.
The Bookers, yeah.
The
Yeah,
Bookers,
Tammy and Ed, yeah.
They have such a good like interaction with each other there.
Yes.
When you talk to them in the cafeteria.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like Ed is so expressive, and like he talks with his whole body.
Yeah.
And I really love that. Yeah, okay. How did the idea of Mayor Setter come up? He's the best.
Well, we originally we were going to do a slightly like more elaborate narrative arc with him. We wanted to have like, well, you know, the Mayor Setter idea we had when we broke down our kind of optional content. We had different themes and quirky small town Americana was one of them that we wanted to try and get across that kind of small town quirky vibe. And then as part of that process, that we were exploring different ideas, and someone said that, hey, you know, in America, in some towns in America, you know, they have mayors as dogs, and we were all like, get out of here. There's no way. And then we looked at it, like, oh, actually they do. So, you know, and so we had this kind of story arc where we were trying to allude to him being something else, like an actual like person, but so like subtly suggest, like if you read the text back after we do the reveal about him being a dog, they all kind of make sense, like in terms of what he's kind of like his kind of taglines are and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, and then obviously we wanted to add the ability to pet a dog as well. So and it wasn't going to work petting the wolf. So
yeah, shame. Another one from Twitch. I'm curious about the deliberate choice to always keep the characters back to the camera in gameplay. And then the person adds, I missed being able to rotate the camera to see Alan or Saga's face, but photo mode has solved that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think for me, it came down to, we just wanted to keep that connection active. And if you can do this thing where the character is looking at you, then you're then you're kind of viewing them from outside.
Right.
Rather than like being them. So it's.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
It didn't fit in with that.
Okay. Oh, God. I don't think we can answer that one because that's a live action question.
Sure.
Let's see. Maybe the one about Alan's suit? Yeah. Alan's suit, John. Would you say it's brown herringbone or more of a grey? And what materials did you look at for the texture? And was it hard to try and get them to fit the models, considering Ilkka is 6 foot tall?
It was okay. I mean, we adjusted the rig, I think, to actually be his height, which kind of made things complicated. But in terms of like, I can't remember this specific patch we chose, but I remember I went to the tailor. We got all the different patches, and we kind of looked through them with Yanni, Sam, and I think you were there, Kyle, as well. But I remember it was like being really specific. But it's got like it's not just brown, but it has like a kind of a turquoise blue line running through it as well. But I can't remember the name. It's eluding me. But and like putting it on the suit was like super simple, which was surprising because I'd never really done the process of doing like a material scanner. So I kind of like hacked this thing together down in the mocap like studio, and I was just like, okay, if I get this light and I get this rig, I can kind of follow this. And then I ended up just like doing this like PBR material scanning, and then I was able to just put it in Substance Designer and kind of create a tile, and then that just went straight in game. And it kind of used the same tech as Saga for the sweater, so I kind of used the same thing. So when we got the knitted fabric, I did the same thing. I just material scanned it, which kind of, it's like this automated process for creating a tileable, physically correct material. And then that just exported and went straight in game.
What unique and unforeseen challenges popped up when first testing the combat against the Taken?
Well, Ilkka alluded to some of it. The fact that they were melee based was problematic. And for the longest time, we had one-on-one melee working pretty well. Like, as in, like, we could kind of get them movement to kind of match with the player. But as soon as we added more than one enemy, it became a nightmare. So we basically, for the longest time, like we couldn't do full like encounter designs because we were working on individual enemies first before we decided to do the pass on their kind of like group behavior. So having each enemy gets a token, and then they're only at that point they can attack, and basically what do they do when they're not attacking. So that's kind of stuff we did a bit later. So it meant that for the longest time people struggled a lot with our combat because the enemies are on screen so long and they're so hard to kill, or they have a longer time to kill. Then managing who you're going to engage with. If they're all engaging you at once, you're just getting stun locked all the time. So for the longest time, we had problems with that until we started introducing the kind of group behavior work. So at least from what I recall, that was kind of difficult.
This one. What was the most time-consuming part of creating these characters?
Probably the hair.
Yeah.
I think that's a common character art problem.
Oh, yeah.
Where, just creating the hair just takes such a long time, like building the strands and then styling the strands and just iterating and iterating again and again. So I think that was like, that's one of the biggest challenges is like creating that fidelity. And like, there's so much going on, like complexity inside the hair. So trying to capture it and then look at it in engine and with the tech kind of working, because we work with Northlight, so we're kind of calibrating the materials and stuff as close as we can. And there's some compromises, but I think, like we just keep pushing and pushing. Mostly it's just like time trying to get it to where you feel like happy. And there's still, even today, there's things like I wanted to do in terms of like, I think when we were talking about narrative, like as we progress, like having some strands come out of the hair, so it's like she's starting to get a bit, like she's getting roughed about a lot, like in combat. So kind of trying to express that would have been cool. But I think we landed in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the most time-consuming thing, but just the way you can switch weapons and put it on your back and bring the other one in from your jacket and keeping that kind of realistic yet still fast enough for gameplay, and then all the technical detail like with the weapon on the back, and it's like secondary motion, how you get the sling to wrap up nicely around your body, but at the same time get simulated when you pull it out of your back, and it was just so complex, and it involves so many departments. So.
How many departments? Who did it all involve?
Rigging,
animation,
character art, gameplay design,
gameplay
code.
Also physics coding for like making the simulation kind of adjustable.
Everybody.
That's a very vague question, but sure. How long did it take to design a character?
I mean, it really depends.
Depends on iterations we went through.
I remember with Saga, like one of the like when we were looking at like the concept design, I remember reading the screenplay and I was like, I'll just give this a bash. And then I went and sat with Janne, and he was like, so the design. And then we just went through like a whole like review and getting feedback. And then I remember going back and I was like, did loads of research into like film references like The Dark and like tonally kind of getting that right, like getting your mind into that.
Nordic noir was kind of something that we looked at quite a lot.
So then we would kind of but I think it just took quite a long time to get the design, at least a year, I think, to really solidly get something on paper.
For Saga?
Yeah.
Wow, damn.
Yeah, but some of them were actually quite quick. Like some of like the NPCs or secondary characters, like really kind of like Tor and Odin. I think those went quite a lot quicker. Maybe just like six or 8 weeks.
Did you mock up real old people to animate residents of the nursing home?
We did. Not like some of the mock-up is also coming from younger actors. But, we also got some correct age group people.
I think we have some behind-the-scenes footage of that. Not right now. We can't. I don't think we can show it right now, but we will share it on our socials at some point soon. Let's see, how are we doing with the questions? Maybe if we don't have any questions left, we can watch some videos while more questions come in. But let's see. Do you feel Rose's character design changed a lot compared to the first game? This person says, I felt that her appearance and overall presentation is way more sassy and bold compared to the shy, almost eerie girl that she used to be.
I mean, in terms of the costume, I remember like I looked at like Twin Peaks in the original game and like how those kind of the tailoring and the design, and we try to kind of stay kind of pay homage to that kind of history. So I think on the actual costume design, we try to be as close as possible.
Yeah, and some of that comes from the actor. Obviously, we changed Rose's actor from Alan Wake 1 to Alan Wake 2, so there is a slight different presence there.
Yep.
But also, you know, it's been a long time since the events of Alan Wake 1, so she's just changed a bit as a person over the course of the time. So.
Sorry, yeah. Let's look at a video. What haven't we seen? The Casey one? Yeah, I think some people in chat want to see the Casey one. We have character photogrammetry, character models progress. Oh, yeah, pick one. Yeah, let's go for Casey, and we'll stay muted. That one's got audio as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll stay muted for that one then. There you go, chat. It's what you wanted. Yeah.
We kind of have two cases in this story. We have the case in the Dark Place, noir, detective type of a character, and then there is an FBI agent who has the unfortunate reality of sharing the name of Alan Wake's famous character. Yeah, it's funny. And because of that kind of loophole, he can kind of affect this character and push him into this situation. So how much of that is due to the person and how much of it is Alan Wake's creation? So it's simpler and certain aspects kind of underlined and exaggerated because he's kind of this hard-boiled character, which already is a genre and a simplification of reality, whereas Alan Wake is the real thing. Casey is kind of on some of those aspects, a caricature. He's kind of a veteran, very stubborn, very obsessive, still a hero, huge disappointments, huge guilt, like on his back, but still keeps on going, like beaten down, like you would have for this kind of a hard-boiled character, always taking the beating, always like, you know, or a bullet or whatever, and still getting up and keeping going.
I think we can bend realism with Alex Cage.
That's the desire of like, if I could only find the perfect comeback, you know, when somebody comes, but I can't, but a writer can, because the writer spends like days coming up with that perfect comeback, and then it's there, and for a character in a story, then it can be like that. Casey is not winning. I try. In my head, I would summarize it: determined but measured and less movement.
When you do something with your hands, decide it first in a way.
Less is more.
Okay. Rapid movement with more sharpness, almost like the shoulders, like lead. You don't lose your balance at all.
Purely on gun, we would not have Casey be the most modern guy when it comes to holding the gun. We don't really dive into his background. We have a bit of a difference that maybe we are a bit more on the caricature side in the Dark Place and slightly less than on the other side.
Okay. Right. So we were chatting about some stuff while this was playing. Mostly John was saying how this was in lockdown, and then you were like, can we talk about that? And how was it making this game and doing a lot of the stuff on this game, some of which had to include physical actors and you being in the same physical space as a lot of people during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, on characters at least, it was like we had to come up with completely different like solutions, especially with casting, and like how we like did the photogrammetry, like how we did that, like working remotely, with some of the teams in like London and LA. So that was like a whole new process. We came up with like a whole new rig that we wanted to use to do the heads in a different way, kind of simplify the pipeline so we could actually, so that they were still like local. We couldn't fly to go be with them, because usually during like the photogrammetry sessions you're kind of there driving it. So we had to like figure out a way of doing that remotely, and a lot of the teams were still coming up with pipelines of like, how do we even do it? So that was kind of a roller coaster ride. And then like slowly, like I remember at some points I was like coming to the studio alone to do a bunch of stuff, and the studio did a great job, you know, with social distancing and like making so it was possible, like so the leads could come in, we could still kind of see like Janne if we needed to, if it was really important, or if there was like an actual thing that I needed to do in the mocap. So it was really like, it was challenging and it was kind of tricky and a bit bonkers, but it was kind of like we found solutions to most of it, and the studio was really, really supportive on making things happen.
Yeah, it's amazing how we didn't have any way to work remotely up until that point.
Yeah.
And then within like 1 or 2 days, like the IT put together,
yeah,
you know, a way to kind of connect and keep working even though you're from home. And then it's like, beginning it was a bit awkward, but it kept getting better. And
we were test running Microsoft Office like 365 just before that, and then that extra like sped up that process like 10 times. It's like, okay, everyone's using this now. Like, okay. Yeah, so cloud-based stuff was kind of like a bit of a lifesaver. And then obviously we had the ability to actually like remotely connect our machine and play the game there. So
I did build a small mocap setup in my home because we were making this like proof of concept build at the same time, and I needed some mocap, and just
we're using Kinect.
I had an old Kinect that I once got from the office.
Yes, with Kinect, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I was using.
Yeah, no, it was really funny actually, because that's why a lot of the garments were scanned on my wife, because we were just like, I went and got like the scanner, took it home, and I just started scanning stuff at home, and I was like, and then just like sculpted it and like put it in game, and it was like kind of wild. Like when I think back, I had like a little turntable, and I would put it in the bathroom so it's like kind of evenly lit, and I would just scan shoes with a little tripod camera. It's just like wild when I think about it, but like it worked, so it was like really cool.
Yeah, a lot of jury rigging of stuff, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were just kind of like trying to figure out how we work and how we communicate with each other. And because, you know, we'd all been used to working in the office and talking in meeting rooms and using whiteboards and brainstorming together. And then everything kind of like came to a halt when we were like, oh crap, how does this work? So yeah, it was challenging for sure, I think. But
it's something I always think back, because when I look at videos and I see face masks, and it kind of reminds me like we actually did the meat of the production during that kind of phase, and it's like at that time, it's like everything's so uncertain, but like, you know, you just kind of do it, right? You just kind of figure it out. But
I think it was problematic because it was actually like a lot of the like pre-production, like when we were trying to figure everything out. Like, it was like, how does this game work? How does it play? What does it look like? Trying to do all of the like ideation, like remotely, is just really difficult, basically, like purely remote, especially when you've not been used to those processes. And nowadays we're kind of much more established on how we can kind of do concepting and idea generation and brainstorming and working together that way. But at the time it was really difficult. So.
Yeah, I remember.
So difficult that I actually just went to the office.
I remember I at one point, because I had my son during production, and we didn't have enough room in like the house, so I like moved my office under the stairs like Harry Potter. And I was just like under the stairs modeling like Wake. I remember just thinking, this is bonkers. Like what is going on? But like when I think back, it's kind of like a cool memory to have.
Yeah, despite everything. Well, we are approaching the end of the stream. I think there's like a little bit of time to get some of your questions in, but we are reaching the end. Julius, you might be able to pull maybe 1 or 2 if we still have some, but let's see. I don't think we do. I think we've answered everything that we could have answered. Let me see. Yeah, I think we have. I think we've answered everything we could have answered. But thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you, Twitch. Thank you, YouTube. Thanks to everyone who has been coming to these streams. I've been seeing a lot of the same names in chat every stream, and that's been really nice. I've been seeing a lot of new names as well. So very, very lovely. We are going to end the stream series here for now, but we'll be back at some point when we figure out what we want to stream, when we chat to you about what kind of stuff you want to see on the channel. Twitch, please stick around. We are going to raid someone playing Alan Wake, as we always do. YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining, for chatting, for the questions. Please follow us on all of the social medias if you haven't already. Join our Discord. It's a lovely community. And yeah, we'll see you around. But Twitch, I think it's !raid message. Yeah, there we go. We got it. And thank you, Ilkka. Thank you, John. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Julius, as always. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you for sitting with me in this sway room and chatting game development.
No
and
problem.
yeah.
All right.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.